This is Agronomy Moment. I'm Wendell Cohen. Welcome everybody here to Agronomy Moment. Today, Top Ag's agronomist Gavin Steuck is going to present to us soybean populations and what we observed last year in the plot with different ranges of populations with respect to yield and our final results on that, as well as some interesting things on other observations as it related to the plant characteristics. And we're going to be doing this test again this next year, and I thought you might all find it interesting as you look back on 21 and what things we might observe going forward. So with that, turn it over to Gavin.
So this was a research project that we were doing out in the plot north of the building here. It was planted on the 6th of May. We're using 5005 Extendiflex beans from Beck's with an 8-row planter with 30-row spacings in between each row. If you guys came to the field day back in July, you would have seen a little bit of this experiment. We showed it off a little bit. But we took it to yield, and for this part of the project we used 3 different populations. We used 75,000, 136,000, 210,000, and pulled 3 plants per population group and measured the height, the plant girth, the width of it, the stem diameter, length of the pods, the number of pods and seeds per pod, and also the seed weight. So here's the 75,000 population and the individual data from each plant, and along with the average on the side. The 136,000 population. And the 210,000 population. When we added those up and got the averages, kind of a side-by-side comparison here, you kind of see that the 75,000 population was a shorter plant with a thicker stem, bigger diameter stem. It was also bushier, had more girth, along with more number of pods of seeds, greater pod length, and compared to the other two. 136,000 was kind of in the middle, kind of average. It did kind of exceed in height and plant girth. Those could be anomalies just based on where they were positioned in the field. And then the 210,000 came in kind of in the higher range in height, but in the lower range on stem diameter, plant girth, pod size, number of pods, and seeds per pod. We calculated the potential yield for potential yield differences in each plant population. We also calculated the number of plants per foot and the number of pods per plant that were in that foot of ground. And we found that the 210,000s had more pods per foot compared to the 175,000s. Versus the 75,000, excuse me. But the 75,000s produced more ounces of seed compared to the 110,000s because the plant had more room to grow and the beans were a little bigger. So when we took this to a by foot comparison and you go ahead and calculate it out, it means that for every 3 feet you have an extra pound of beans, and for every 210 feet you have an extra bushel of beans. So that's kind of how all this represents. Now, as far as our results from the combine come, they came the 21st in October, then harvested each row separately, individually. So we got individual data. To do this, we had to measure each row, get the length, and subtract any large bare spots. Those did kind of leave a little bit of room for maybe some thinner spots that weren't necessarily kind of a part of large spots. So when we compare the yield potential on the last slide with this slide, there's a little bit of a difference. Although the results are similar, as in the 75,000 population does yield better than the 210,000 population, and the 136,000 is still right there in there with the 75,000 population. So kind of in conclusion, kind of wrap this all together. The 75,000 population did win our plot research, had the most yield, and was able to do this because it was able to utilize natural resources that are available to it, have more room to grow, get bigger and bushier, and utilize as much water and plant, sunlight, and other nutrients available in the soil to create more nodes and more branches, which created more pods and created more seeds and created more protein in the seeds. Also created a larger diameter stem, which helps it to be more sturdy and increase sustainability and less potential to fall over like you'd see in a tall, willowy type situation like the 210,000s when they were super tall and super thin stem. So what this kind of means is that if you have a field where the plant populations may be reduced, then all come up, you might be able to make it work if your stand is evenly thin, meaning there's no huge bare spots like we see here and here. You kind of maybe make them work. It all comes down to kind of what you're willing to risk. I think it's pretty even, and that the plants can compensate for the extra space and make up for that yield. Go ahead and do it. But if you think there's too much spacing, there's too big of gaps and it's uneven, go ahead and replant. But in the end, you kind of got to find that happy medium between not enough seed and too much seed. So if it's kind of early in the season, you might be able to get away with maybe reducing some plant populations because the conditions can kind of help make up for that, because it'd be cooler weather and more water available than in the summertime when there's hotter conditions and less water. So in early season, you can reduce your populations, but as the season goes on, definitely increase those populations.
All right, thank you for listening to us on Agronomy Moment today. We hope you've found some of this of interest. Maybe it'll help as we and you make decisions going forward into this year, not knowing what the weather will be like, a lot of factors to consider, and our goal is to help you put those tools into your toolbox so that you have some more resources to look at as it comes to making decisions through planting season. And so, all the best in 2022. We'll see you soon. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to topagservices.com/podcasts, or find us on social media and wherever you find your podcast or our YouTube channel. This is Agronomy Moment. Hey, this is Wendell Cohen, show host and producer. Thank you to all those who made this show possible. This show is over. See ya.